community that has a very important effort respecting the acknowledgement of the Palestinian state, or focusing the imperative solutions between Israel and Palestine through the establishment of the Palestinian state, focusing efforts and sight to the rights of the Palestinian people of self-determination. Gaza was still in place, Israeli aggression is still to continue, and escalation in the West Bank, in addition to what witnessing of the extension of the war to the Republic of Lebanon. That would make us as Islamic and Arab states, in addition to the ministerial committee, to be before a very standing and difficult mission, which is, firstly, is the ceasefire. And of course, the establishment of the Palestinian state is the main issue, but we should not neglect that hundreds of thousands of the Palestinians suffer daily from hunger, from fear, displacement, let alone the hundreds to be killed daily. And we should not allow for the international community to avoid the Israeli crimes and try to focus on matters that are not basic and justify the silence, and which is the main role of the ministerial committee and what we are going to do in the upcoming days and weeks. And we hope to be succeeded in this direction. And I think that the gathering of the summit and the issue of the unified Islamic and Arab stance, that a great portion of the people represent, that would be heard and affected in pushing the stances throughout or toward the escalation of reaching a solution. But in fact, there is a reluctance of the international community and the delay of the international institution to make their rules, and that we are going to work upon recently, and to imply the international law effectively.
What difference do you think this summit is actually going to make? Because you had this summit last year, everyone turned up, there was lots of condemnation of Israel's actions in Gaza. 1 year on, the war has spread. So what effect, realistically, is this very grand summit going to have?
Thank you. I think the first effect that this summit, like the previous summit, has is for everyone to hear that the Arab and Muslim world are speaking in one voice, that we are all outraged at what is happening in Palestine, and that the world's dealing with this humanitarian catastrophe and with Israel's continuing violation of humanitarian law, international humanitarian law, the laws of war, will have an impact, because it will register with not just the governments of the Arab and Muslim world, but the people of the Arab and Muslim world. And I think that has had an impact. I think if you see the positions of many countries around the world when the war in Gaza started to where they are now, I think they have evolved. They have evolved significantly in a direction of understanding, first of all, that there is no solution to this conflict that is a military solution, that the only way for sustainable peace in our region is through a two-state solution, is through giving peace and security to all the peoples of our region, including the Palestinians. And I think the conversation has moved significantly in that direction. If we look, for instance, at the Coalition for a Two-State Solution, which was announced in New York in September, which had its first meeting a few weeks ago here in Riyadh, where 90 countries and organizations attended. This is a renewed commitment to a two-state solution that didn't exist before the efforts of the summit and what came out of it. And this is not insignificant because, to be quite honest, the two-state solution was dying a slow death. And with the conflict in Gaza and the activities of Israel in the West Bank, that death was accelerating. But what we now see is that there is a significant consensus of the international community, a majority of countries, of the members of the United Nations, a significant number of the largest countries actually in the world, that stand very firmly behind a two-state solution. And this is a reformation that had been lacking. So I think in that context, that is significant progress. I think there is significant progress given what we saw of several countries recognizing the state of Palestine and others now seriously considering that recognition, including some very, very important countries, and accelerating their recognition even before a final status agreement, which had always been the argument that has held up universal recognition of the state of Palestine. And the reality is, if Israel has a veto over the establishment of a state of Palestine, the risk is that we will never see a state of Palestine. And the conversation has moved and has evolved. Have we been able to stop the conflict in Gaza? Unfortunately, not. And this is a failing of the international community as a whole. It's not just a lack of success of what we have been doing. It is really a reflection of the reality that the mechanisms of international peace and security, front and center of them, the United Nations Security Council, are unable to deal effectively with a conflict where we have had now near 100,000 civilian deaths, the majority of them women and children, and a policy now of starvation being implemented by the Israeli government in clear contravention of every aspect of international law, international human law. So where we have been successful is we have reaffirmed the commitment of the international community to the two-state solution. Where the international community primarily has failed is in actually ending the immediate conflict, in putting an end to Israel's aggression. And that's something that really has to happen immediately. And we have, of course, all of us in the Arab and Muslim world called for an immediate ceasefire. It is up to the international community to realize that when it comes to Israel's prosecution of its war in Gaza and the activities we are seeing in the West Bank, it goes well beyond ensuring Israel's security. This seems to have a much broader agenda. This seems to be working towards changing the status on the ground in a way that is irreversible. So we are going to continue to call on the international community to live up to the standards that they have set, and we will continue to work towards reaching, hopefully, a ceasefire. We will not tire of diplomacy. The Arab world, since 2002, has made clear that their strategic approach is diplomacy, that they believe in peace through diplomacy, security through diplomacy. We are going to continue to work through diplomacy to achieve the peace we all seek and we all deserve.